Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It's January 29th, and this will be our chart lesson for the day. A couple of things. I am back from my vacation. Everything we got out of here okay, got back okay. Um, I will say that you can probably tell my throat's a little scratchy. It never fails. I go on a vacation. The minute I cross the state line coming back home, my sinuses start draining and I get a sore throat, and then for 3 or 4 days I'm stopped up hacking, and it never fails. It's just part of me traveling. So I don't know what it is. I've been to a lot of doctors. They all say it's allergies, and none of them have helped really. But anyway, you'll have to deal with my scratchy throat for a couple of days. And here's a look at our daily chart. Let's move on to our daily chart. Oh, one more thing. Of course, like always, I was gone for a week, and I had no email, no internet access the whole time. Uh, so I hadn't read a single email since I left out of here. What was it, Thursday night, not knowing if I'd be back Friday, and of course the weather was so bad here Friday or whatever, I didn't even bother to come back. So I'm way behind on email. Uh, Bear with me, just be patient with me, and I'll catch up in a couple of days and get back on track here, and try to get back in the forum some too. So if you got something in the forum that I haven't addressed, I'll get to it as soon as I can. But let's take a look at our daily chart here. This market just won't quit. It just keeps going higher. Don't argue with it. Just as long as it keeps going higher, keep buying. Um, and notice we've got two measured legs up now. I wanted to point that out. When we showed this measured leg back a few weeks ago, um, it seemed like a monumental task to get to almost 5,000 here, and lo and behold, we're there. We're knocking on the door. So this market just won't quit. It just keeps going higher. Um, as long as it keeps going higher, we're going to keep buying. So, you can see it right there. Now, is this the top of this range? I don't know. It looks like it. The midline seems to fit, but it could be more like this. And we may have a long way to go. We may be heading to 5,000, 5,100. Who knows? This market's crazy right now. Um, I think they've already got the rate hikes baked into this market. And I've been saying this for a while, that I'm concerned at some point this thing's going to tumble and tumble hard. But, picking a top is almost impossible. So as long as it keeps going up, the good thing about day trading is that, you can get a better idea where the market's going short term. Where it's going long term here is harder to determine. But when we flip over to 2000 tick chart, it's obvious when you got a trend straight up or you got a trend straight down. Just go with it. And let's just go ahead and flip over there to the 2000 tick chart, and I can show you what today's chart looks like. And here it is. And we had really low volume early on today. So what looked like was going to be a weak sideways day turns into another super strong rally. So it just keeps going higher, keeps going higher. And, you can't argue with it. When you start to see these kind of trends, just trade them. Go with them. I had somebody send me, right before I left town, I had somebody send me an email wanting me, they try to go short on something. Let me see if I can just go over there and find that day. I don't quite remember where it was. It wasn't last week. It was right before I left. I think it was probably this day. And once again, it starts off looking like a range, and it breaks out up here and starts going, and they're trying to pick a top on the way up, and wondering, can't believe they lost on a trade. They tried to go short up here. Don't ever try to short something like this. This is a very, very strong trend. Don't try to short, even in here. Uh, and they replied back that, well, I followed the rules. There was a break and a new high, so it says to go short. Well, nowhere do the rules say that. The rules say that once you get a break and a new extreme, which could be a new high in this case, if it was going down, it'd be a new low. you don't start looking for shorts until you get a confirmed trend in the other direction. It just tells you to be careful and watch for a correction. A correction could mean it sells off hard, or it could mean that it just goes sideways for a little while, like it did here. So make sure, just because sometimes people think they understand the rules, that's a total misconception if you think that as soon as you get a break in a new high, you're supposed to start looking for a short. That's wrong. And nowhere do the rules say that. And um, the rules say that once you get a break, to keep looking for longs if you get a good setup, because the market should attempt to retest and make a new extreme. So if you get a good setup after a break of a trend line, yes, try to go long. But don't try to go short until you get a confirmed trend in the other direction, because picking tops is futile. You will lose your shirt. You're going to lose every time. And that's the number one. That's probably the first rule in the manual you'll read is don't try to pick tops and bottoms. So nowhere does the rule say that once you get a break of a trend line and a new extreme that you should start looking for going in the other direction, because that's not true. Because sometimes on these strong trends, all it does is correct. You might get a two-legged correction and another leg up, or you might work sideways for an hour or so and then head up again. So it doesn't mean you're going to get a reversal. So if you've got that misconception, then you're doing the wrong thing. So make sure you understand that. If that didn't make sense what I just said, go back and listen to it a few more times to make sure you understand what the rules actually say. And I'm not picking on that trader. I just want to make sure he understands, because he was super frustrated. Explain how this was a great trade and it failed. Explain it. And I'm like, well, it's the number one rule. You broke the number one rule. Don't try to pick tops and bottoms. I mean, it was simple to explain. And I know that probably just made him madder, but you can't let this stuff frustrate you. You got to, if you argue with yourself, if you argue with the market, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lose. You don't argue with the market. You don't argue with yourself. You don't argue with the rules. If you have a losing trade, you did something wrong. It was not a great setup. Trust me, every once in a while you'll see something that looks like a good setup, but there's always some clue that if you were a really skilled chart trader, you'd probably catch it. But even good chart traders get fooled sometimes. So you're going to have losses. But when you're trying to short something like this right here and you have a loss, you got nobody to blame but yourself. Don't ever short that. And you don't see a single short. Once this thing started going higher, you don't see a single short in there, period. Because you don't short a market like that, ever. So I hope that's helpful. Let's get to the trades, and there's not many of them today. Like I said, it was really mixed and low volume early this morning. You can see there's just not a lot of volume in here, not many bars. I mean, this is 10 o'clock, and that's all the bars we got from the opening yesterday till 10 o'clock. So not much going on here. But 7 o'clock comes just as this is pulling back and bouncing here. And you can see we tried to go higher once, twice, and then made this lower high. And this actually broke higher and failed. That's a big bearish bar. I like going short there. Closes below the EMA, and you've already got your break and new high here, and then a lower high. And you really could call that a triple test across there as well. So this couldn't even get back up to the line to test it. So this is, you could call this a triple test. There's a new swing low here, so it's a first entry, second entry. It's a second entry short. It's a lower high off this high. Test that resistance. So there's multiple reasons to the big bearish bar that broke higher and turned down. If it would have went on out the other side, you could have traded it on the engulfing bar, but you actually get a better entry by closing there because it just drops on down. You don't get much more than a scalp out of it, but it was a quick, easy scalp, and then it's going higher. I don't see anything there to go long on. And then it's just too choppy and sideways and congested. Just stay out of that. And finally, we get a little failed break higher here. You try to go higher once, twice, three times, and you get this big bearish bar that closes inside the range. I like going short right there. And that's a quick, easy move, and you would have got a runner on that most likely. Depending on how you played it, you should have got a runner on it. There's a hidden second entry there, but you closed back inside the range, and that's too dangerous to go short right there. Right into the EMA, uh, right into the support there. I'd want a lower high, and you just never get it. You do come back and make a lower high right here, but that's moved too far in both directions. So your real lower high is here, and this actually broke higher and tested that breakout area and turned down. So I like going short when that went through on the engulfing bar. If you'd have waited till it closed, you would have had to ride this out on this pullback a little bit, but you still could have made money there. And then you got another engulfing bar here. Um, but by the time it closes, it's too close to these lows, and it would have worked, but you just don't want to go short there. And you don't want to buy down here. And notice what this did. Here's our close from Friday, and we opened at 8:30 up here. So this is filling that gap. It was not, I mean, that was another reason to like these shorts, is because you realize prices are trying to fill this gap. But we'd already filled it here. You needed the lower high and second entry there. And this would have been a failure, but this is not where you look for a failure. And you don't want to buy, just, it does give it a double test down here. And it is a little ways away from the EMA. It's not a second entry long though, even though there are two breaks, because your new high is here and you get a first entry, second entry, third entry. That's like a fourth entry. You can't take that, and your high or low has got 3-bar matching highs. So just sit tight. And if you do, a few minutes later, you get a second entry long that confirms that trend line with enough room to scalp out before hitting the resistance, but it doesn't matter. It takes off. Pulls back, tests that support again, and goes higher again. If you'd have got a second entry right in here, I'd have said take it, but you just don't get one. It runs all the way back up, and you get a short right here near the resistance of the range, but nothing's closed outside that green channel, and there's a good chance it's going to try to go higher, which it does. And this is all too congested, so that you're stuck between the range high and the midline here, and there's just no setups there. So don't try to trade any of that. Just sit tight, and it runs up, and you do get a second entry short here that I think that broke higher and touched the measured move. The stash line is a measured move based on the width of this range. I didn't mark this because I don't like going short on a no-bodied bar like that. I mean, it's like one tick body. Don't do that. Anytime you have a doji or big stems, you want a good body. It could be bearish or green. That doesn't really matter what color here, because this broke higher and is reversing. But you just don't want to do it on these doji type bars because they're not real reliable. And it could be congestion setting up, and you could get burned that way. So just sit tight on that. It's too close to the resistance here. It might hold and go higher, might go lower. I just don't think you want to trade this way down here, right into that low, and right into this, right into the EMA, right into the support resistance line. It ends up working, but you don't know that. And you get multiple tests across here, but you can't go long right into that resistance either. So you just kind of have to sit tight on this one. Here you only get a first entry, and this you didn't get a retest, a break of this and a retest, so you can't really. I mean, one test there is not good enough to go long again. But it runs up here and pulls back. You get a first entry. This made a new high. This is a double top basically, so you want to start your count over, and so it drops down here and you breaks. I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in here a little bit. It breaks higher, then it turns lower and turns back up. I wouldn't trade that on the engulfing bar, but if it breaks above here, go along with it. There was this inside bar, but it still closed really bullish, and it does make a higher low here. So if it breaks above that, it's probably going to take off. So I still like that one. It's a second entry long, and it takes off. It turns out to be a pretty good trade. And then you get another first entry, second entry that confirms this trend line with a nice bullish bar. So I can't remember if this broke lower or turned up. There hadn't been a close and a new low here, but because this is looking like a really strong trend now, right off that key entry point there, I'd take this right off the EMA as well. You might be better off to wait on a higher low, but you never get one. It's moved too far here and then comes back and you get a close outside. But notice again, you make a new high. It breaks higher right there. That's a first entry. Then it turns down again and it breaks higher again. And that's a second entry long. Again, I would wait for this to close and go long there. And I made this one green because you're real close to the high, and it could just go one tick and fail on you. But this has been really strong. And to me, it doesn't look like we've gotten anywhere near as high as we should be going, because this looks like it's probably going to be a midline. You can see it working through there. So you expect prices to maybe run on up a little bit here on this retest of a high. And I mean, you don't know that it's going to do this, but it turns into it just rockets up and makes a huge move. It turns out to be a, 11 point, almost 12 point move, almost $600. So again, this is not a perfect setup, but it's also, this is basically a new swing low because it's lower than that one. So you get a first entry, second entry short. So it's also a failed second entry short on top of being a second entry long. So that, and then you have the engulfing bar. So that's another reason to like that trade. Of course, it runs on up, turns down. You get a close outside. You actually get two legs up. I mean, this one's tempting right in here to go short, but I don't know whether that broke lower or higher first. If it broke higher first and then turned down, I would at least wait for this to close. I mean, then you might go short right there. It's like, let's see how far. I mean, it's like 3 minutes in. That's pushing it. I mean, this one's only a minute in, minute and something. So, if you get a really good setup here, but again, I wouldn't be looking for a short yet. So just scratch that idea. This isn't worth fooling with here. Because you're just trying to pick a top. And notice you got the green channel. You do have the break in new high, and you would expect prices to come back to here, but it's just not worth trying to short strong trends like that, because just like we talked about at the beginning. I mean, after the fact, it's pretty easy to see it, but in real time, you'll get fooled a bunch. So just better off to skip that. It's after 2:30. If you make a mistake here, it's too late to make it back. That's what I always tell people. That's the reason I don't like to take a trade after 2:30, period. If you get a really great setup, maybe. But I don't see that as being a great setup. The odds are it's probably coming back to the EMA, but it could bounce and go higher. So it's not, I mean, if you did mark that, you'd have to do it green, and you'd be trying to pick a top, and it's just not worth it, because you'll end up, just like we talked about in the beginning of the video, like that other trader, you'll end up in a world of hurt. So when you get a trend like this, just look for longs. And you can see, even once you got your break, it still went higher and attempted to make a new high. And so that's what I'm saying. Once you get the break of the trend line, if you get a good setup to go long again, assuming this was not after 2:30, you can try to go long, because you want to ride that, because sometimes that next move is even stronger. But it'll run out of steam and either start working sideways, or it might correct a little bit, or it might just zoom down. But before you try to go short here, make sure you got a confirmed trend to the downside, which you got a little bit of one here, but you'd want a bigger confirmed trend, which it looks like you got that too here actually. So there's a little bit of a bigger trend. But you wouldn't want to take a first entry or anything like that. You would want some kind of second entry, and it need to be a good signal bar, and you'd want plenty of room back to here, because it could bounce there again. There's no break yet, so even though you're expected it to come back there, again, you're just better off to skip these and just wait until you get a real good confirmed trend that just keeps going. So anyway, not a lot of trades today. There's a couple of good ones here though, but there's not a lot of them. There's several second entries here with the with the trend, but not the greatest trading day. This stuff right here is just so hard to trade. And this is where people usually get chopped up. And then on this, if you just buy, I mean, this is the thing you got to understand. If you make a mistake entering with the trend, a lot of times you'll still survive and have a winner. But if you make a mistake counter trend trading, it's usually going to burn you big time. So if you're going to err. If you're going to gamble, gamble with the trend. If the trend is your friend, that's one of the old trading. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Trading concepts or phrases or whatever that you hear that you can actually bank on. The trend is your friend. That one I agree with. Most all that other stuff you learn, throw that stuff away. It's all hogwash. But that one you can take to the bank. The trend is your friend. And you can make an error trading with a trend and still survive. But if you counter trend trade and make an error, you're just about assured a loser. So don't try counter trend trading a trend like that. Even if you get a break in new high, wait till you get a trend in the other direction. So you did get a break of this green one in a new high, so you would expect it to probably come back here, but this late in the day, just don't fool with that. Even earlier in the day, you may not fool with that because you need to know what you need to be very skilled chart reader to trade that, and even then, you're still taking a chance. So it's just not a great setup because there's too much that can go wrong. Because once you start to get a trend like this, especially, let me show you this. I mean, when you start to see trends that move like this with lots of stems and little bars, and the corrections are only a bar or two, notice how these corrections are not very deep. They're just a bar or two every time. That's a strong, strong trend, especially when you see all these little stems and stuff. Even this right here is a strong trend. And you can see it had a break, couple legs up to a new high, and then what happened? It turned and went back in the range, started going sideways again until it broke out and went higher. So even here you had a strong trend within this range when you got the failed break lower and you got the double test of the close from Friday. And once it tested it twice, it was off to the races. It held both times. So it was off to the races. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, it'll take me a couple of days to get caught up, so be patient with me. And anyway, we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.